Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a recap of all of the Monday Night Football games, including the Steelers at the New York Football Giants and the Tennessee Titans going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver. I'm going to be talking about my overall opinion of the game, my overall opinion of the players inside of the game, and how that may end up dictating the next week's of the fantasy football season. Now, before I get into it, I'd like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying this video throughout it, please make sure to hit that subscribe button at any time. It's free, and I put out content every single day to help you guys win that 2020 Fantasy Football Championship. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. We are first going to be talking about the Steelers at the New York Football Giants. The Steelers ended up winning this game 26-16. Now, the scoreboard was kind of close at the end of the game, but in reality, this game was a complete and utter wash by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense absolutely dominated in this game, as did the offense. The Giants really stood no chance in this game. The biggest glaring thing that happened in this game probably was Saquon Barkley. 15 carries for 6 total yards. Saquon had a glaring 0.4 yards per carry in that game. 0.4. Now, I personally believe that Saquon Barkley would be able to somewhat overcome the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and play quite well. It turned out that offensive line gave Saquon legitimately no chance. He was getting hit before he even hit the line of scrimmage on a majority of the plays. So Saquon Barkley obviously didn't have all that good of a game. Ended up going 6 for 60 on 9 targets in the receiving game. So he obviously made up for it in that. If you're in a PPR, half PPR league, you weren't completely disappointed with Mr. Saquon Barkley. But at the end of the day, obviously not what you like to see. Now, don't overreact to this. Don't overreact to one bad game from Saquon Barkley. Don't try to sell him. Don't try to do anything. Just don't panic off of Saquon Barkley. Still one of the best running backs in the NFL. Still going to be a great running back for fantasy football. He just faced a brick wall week 1. I think he's going to be able to overcome that. And as the season goes on, the offensive line is going to get much better. The addition of Mekhi Becton, you can see that guy legitimately pushing guys off of the line. Just kidding. Mekhi Becton is a New York Football Jet. He was the one that was literally dominating for the Jets' offensive line, but the Giants' O-line did not look very good at all. But I assume that they're going to get better as the year goes on. So looking more into the Giants team, 26 of 41 for Danny Dimes for 279 yards, 2 tutties, and 2 INTs. Kind of how I expected Daniel Jones to play in this game. Didn't expect a big output from him, and he just did not do that, so it wasn't really something that shocked me that he played bad against one of the better defenses in the league, though he did make a lot of good plays in this game. He also ran the ball 4 times for 22 yards, so he didn't have all that garbage of a fantasy day, but obviously throwing 2 INTs is obviously not going to help out your fantasy football output. For the Giants receiving core, Darius Slayton looked exceptional. 6 receptions on 9 targets for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. I honestly believed earlier in the offseason, this is Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is going to dominate. He's going to be as good as he was down the stretch of last season. Then I kind of convinced myself off of Darius Slayton. I was like, you know what? There's a lot of receivers in this offense. There's Sterling Shepard. There's Golden Tate. There's Evan Ingram. There may just not be enough for Darius Slayton to eat. Turns out, Golden Tate gets hurt before the game even starts. He doesn't even play. It was Darius Slayton time. I guess I was wrong on Darius Slayton. I was originally right, then I pivoted off when it was wrong, and then I guess so I was wrong technically, but I did like Darius Slayton. I still think Darius Slayton is a solid player. Not a guy I necessarily want to start in every game, but definitely a guy with huge upside, considering he is a big play receiver. His long ball was a 41-yard pass from Danny Dimes, so Darius Slayton is definitely a guy to be feared if he is in your opponent's lineup or you have him on your team. Sterling Shepard ended up playing well, 6 for 47 on 6 targets. The guy who really shit the bed in this game on the Giants team, I would say besides Saquon, had to have been Evan Ingram. Easy E gets 7 targets, gets 2 receptions for a grand total of, drum roll please, 9 whole yards. Evan Ingram was involved. He was getting the ball thrown to him. It just seemed like he was dropping everything. He got a touchdown that was pretty much thrown right to him. Didn't end up catching it. It just didn't seem like it was Evan Ingram's day. I expect him to bounce back. He was a guy that I really was not targeting in the offseason due to injury problems. I don't expect him to be a guy, though, that when he's healthy to play all this bad, like play that bad again this whole season. Now onto the Steelers team that ended up winning the game. Big Ben is back. The guy's coming back. It's comeback season, like his name was Johnny Football. 21 of 32 for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. This guy could have fucking put blindfold on and thrown 3 touchdowns to Juju Smith-Schuster, even though Juju only scored 2. This game was excellent out of Big Ben, and what I said in the offseason was if Big Ben can stay healthy, Juju will be good. So I didn't know what to do with Juju. I really didn't. I was fine drafting him. I was fine missing out on him. I felt as though he relied 100% not on Juju because I knew Juju was good. I just didn't feel like Big Ben may not be healthy enough and he may struggle. So when Big Ben's healthy, clearly Juju is going to dominate. 6 for 69 on 6 targets. Very nice for Juju Smith-Schuster, and 2 total touchdowns. This guy was dominant in this game, and I expect Juju to keep on rolling as the weeks go on, and I expect Big Ben to be a guy that, if he is already not picked up in a lot of leagues, to get picked up after this game. Another notable part of this Steelers game was James Conner going down, had 6 carries for 9 yards, all right? But then he ends up getting hurt. It seems like he is going to miss 2 to 4 games. So that means the next guy up in the pecking order would be Benny Snell, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He got 19 touches in this game, 113 yards, 0 touchdowns though, but did end up putting up a very solid game. Now, Benny Snell, not involved at all really in the pass-catching game, ended up having 1 target in this game. If you want the pass-catching running back for the Steelers, that is going to be a different man, Jalen Samuel, who had 1 target in the game for 1 yard, as well as 1 carry for 2 yards. He is going to be the pass-catching running back on this team. Just so you know that, Benny Snell, I don't expect to get so many targets, but he is going to be the main guy on the team getting touches. Mike Tomlin does this thing that is called a bell cow back. It does not fucking matter if it's when it was Le'Veon Bell and James Conner was behind him, it was all Le'Veon Bell. When it's James Conner and Benny Snell's behind him, it's all James Conner until he gets hurt. So now it's going to be Benny Snell unless Benny Snell gets hurt, and I personally believe Benny Snell could be fucking excellent for your team for the next couple of weeks, obviously until Mr. James Conner ends up coming back. So I hope that you guys are going to be able to pick up Benny Snell if you own James Conner. I would really, really advise you try to go out there aggressively and get him. And even if you don't own James Conner, Benny Snell is going to be a guy that is going to light it up for the next couple of weeks until James Conner comes back. Big Ben rushed the ball 3 times for 9 total yards. James Conner, like I said, 6 for 9. Chase Claypool got the ball in the rushing game and made one of the best catches in the NFL so far from week 1. Toe tap on the sideline, catches the ball. Great for the rookie Chase Claypool. Like I said, Juju Smith-Schuster really dominated in this game. Though, one of my favorite late-round wide receivers in fantasy football this year was Mr. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver of the Steelers. Ends up getting 10 targets in this game, catching 6 of them for 57 yards. He probably would have had like 20 plus points in this game had he not have been so shit in like the first 2 quarters of the game. He was looking atrocious. He was in his own head, dropping balls left and right. And then in like the 3rd and 4th quarter, Deontay Johnson turned it on, put the pedal to the metal, and played very good. James Washington also involved, 3 targets for 2 receptions and 1 touchdown for 34 yards. But understand, it is Deontay Johnson as the number 2 guy on the team behind Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, Deontay Johnson even saw more targets than Juju Smith-Schuster. So that just tells you how good that Deontay Johnson actually is. And he's going to be a guy that obviously I doubt is available in a lot of leagues, but is a guy now that I would be very comfortable starting on a week in and week out basis for my fantasy football team. Now, before we get into the Tennessee Titans and the Denver Broncos, I'd like to ask if you guys have not subscribed already to please hit that subscribe button down below. I put out content every single day, like I said, off the top of the video. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And this video is brought to you guys by my friends and my partner over at OverlayDFS.com. If you guys want to play a DFS game that is so easy that anyone could do it, Overlay DFS is where you want to go. You're doing matchup-based picks. On the matchup shop, you're going to be picking between 2 players. Some of them are going to be money line picks where it's a player versus a player with 0 points added. In other games, it may be +6 or -6 to each player. The player obviously perceived to score more fantasy points may get the minus points, and then the guy perceived to score less points is going to get the plus points. You pick the matchup. You bet as much as you want on the game. I will make videos this week about it on my channel, so make sure you check it out. If you checked it out last week, you would have made some nice moolah. So check that out, overlaydfs.com, link down below in the description. Without further ado, though, we are going to get back straight into the video. The Denver Broncos going up against the Houston Texans. Now, this game was all Texans all game long, if I'm being completely honest with you. The Texans should have won this game probably by 27 points. It seemed like maybe even it was probably like 12 points or something because Stephen Gostkowski missed every kick I have ever seen in my life. Let me scroll down here. Right here. Where is it? Stephen Gostkowski, 1 for 4 on field goals, 25%, hit the game-winning walk-off field goal, 1 for 2 on extra points. I'm surprised they even took him back on the plane from Denver. That shit was absolutely embarrassing. He somehow redeemed himself later in the game, but I would not be surprised if Gostkowski ends up getting cut from the team because it was absolutely embarrassing. It seemed like the Tennessee Titans should have really dominated this game, but only ended up coming out with the victory by 2. In this game, Ryan Tannehill played pretty well, 29 of 43 for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 INTs. They did have to pass the ball a lot more than they probably should have, considering they weren't up by a million. They could have just handed the ball to Derrick Henry a million times had Gostkowski have made those field goals. So I actually project that Derrick Henry may be seeing even more touches in other games, but he's still got fed the ball 30-plus times in this game. Derrick Henry, 31 carries for 116 yards and no touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill, 3 for 14 in the rushing game. Also, important to note, Darrington Evans did not get a single touch in this backfield. What that means is Derrick Henry is a full-on fucking workhorse. They didn't even give another person besides Ryan Tannehill, who gave himself the rush. He fucking did it himself. They didn't give anyone else the ball. So it just seems like Derrick Henry is going to be dominant all season long. Derrick Henry did get denied, though, multiple times at the doorstep. He was knocking on the fucking door, and with the battering ram just turned around and fucking hit him straight in the chest and knocked him over because his ass just was not able to score a touchdown. But I am not worried about that. Derrick Henry did put up a pretty solid game. Was also involved actually late in the game in the pass catching game. 3 for 3 like a free throw for 15 total yards for Derrick Henry in the receiving game. For the wide receivers of the Tennessee Titans, though, we did see something that absolutely boggled my fucking mind. Corey the Cumstain Davis gets 8 targets, 7 receptions, 101 yards, and no touchdowns. This man was like the 5th or 6th or 7th pick of the draft a bunch of years ago, right? They don't even give him his 5th-year option for next year. After 4 years, they say, get out of town, skedaddle. And now Corey Davis is having the 5th year or the 4th year explosion like you've seen out of Devontae Parker last year. It makes no sense to me how Corey Davis is even doing this good, but I kind of predicted it in the offseason, saying maybe, just maybe, with Ryan Tannehill practicing more with Corey Davis, he will get more involved. And he was. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be an every week thing. I personally don't believe Corey Davis is going to be a guy getting over 100 yards, probably again in this season. But if he is getting those receptions, he's definitely worthy of a pickup in fantasy football. Mr. Adam Humph Daddy from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year moves to the Tennessee Titans and doesn't do anything. This year, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 47 yards. It's almost shocking how little A.J. Brown was involved. Now, he did have 8 targets for 5 receptions and 39 yards, and he did have the ball go straight through his hands. The ball went straight through the guy's hands, and he ended up dropping it in the end zone for the walk-off touchdown to have won the game. So he would have done much better had that have happened, but there's no ifs, ands, or buts, all right? We're not fucking counting if he was close to doing it as fantasy points, because that doesn't count as anything. So we did not have a good game, but I do expect a bounce back next week for Mr. A.J. Brown. Jadoo Smith, tight end, 4 for 36 and 1 touchdown, doing what I thought Jadoo Smith would do. 7 targets for Smith. I think he's going to be very involved in this offense, and my prediction was quite correct. A bunch of other guys ended up doing good. Cole Pruitt ended up scoring a touchdown as well. On Twitter, I tweeted out, that's a funny way to spell Jadoo Smith with Pruitt. Haha, so fucking funny, right? That's what I said because I thought it was funny that Jadoo Smith didn't end up scoring. But later in the game, he did. For the Denver Broncos, Horsecock Drew Lock, 22 of 33 for 216 yards and 1 touchdown. This game showed me that Drew Lock does have his inconsistencies. Late in the game, for the chance to really win the game, to kind of put the dagger in the Titans' heart, Drew Lock overthrew the ball to, I believe, Jerry Jeudy. Doesn't really matter who he threw it to. He just overthrew it, and they could have won the game because of it. Drew Lock still has to figure out how to contain his arm, how to play much better, but this is his 6th game ever in the NFL, and I think he played quite well. And if you're a Denver Broncos fan, you should not be pissed off at this game. I think he played quite well, and I expect that maybe he will be a threat in fantasy football later into the season. Philip Lindsay ends up going down in this game, 7 for 24, which was sad because Melvin Gordon ends up fumbling. It's like, holy shit, Melvin Gordon's going to lose this job to Philip Lindsay, which is what I predicted could happen in the offseason. But then Lindsay ends up getting hurt. So he kind of screwed me over there. I expect him to be gone maybe a couple of weeks. And with that said, Melvin Gordon will be very good in that case and will be a guy that you actually want to start. 15 for 78 and 1 touchdown. But I don't want to see any Melvin Gordon truthers doing victory laps in the comments because you only got this far because of an injury. Horsecock Drew Lock, 3 for 5 in the rushing game. Melvin Gordon, 15 for 78 and 1 touchdown. In the receiving game for the Denver Broncos, Noah Fant absolutely bumfucked the Titans defense. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 81 yards and 1 total touchdown. Noah Fant was balling out all game long. It seems like he is Drew Lock's favorite target when Cortland Sutton is not there. With that said, though, Jeudy, 8 targets, 4 receptions, and 56 yards. Jeudy was making some rookie mistakes in that game. Dropped a couple of balls that I thought he should have easily been able to have caught, and had they been thrown to him at Alabama, he would have caught, but maybe it was the occasion. It was his first ever NFL game. Maybe he had the jitters. Maybe he was a bit scared. which led to him dropping the ball, which is okay. Those are the kind of kinks that obviously get out, but it was interesting to note since he was pretty involved in the game. Tim Patrick, 4 for 29. Deshaun Hamilton, 1 for 18. Rolls-Royce Freeman, 1 for 12, and a bunch of other guys got the ball. Lindsay got the ball one time for 11 yards, and Melvin Gordon got a couple of dump-offs after Philip Lindsay kind of exited the game, 3 for 8. So overall, I felt pretty good about Derrick Henry in this game. I feel pretty good to think that A.J. Brown is going to bounce back. I also now, while I hate Melvin Gordon, feel like he's going to have a great next couple of games just because of Philip Lindsay's injury. And I think Noah Fant may have really, really, really excited me, but I have to wait till I see him do it with Courtland Sutton on the field. Until then, I will not be completely all aboard the Noah Fant train like a lot of people were. I didn't buy my ticket there. I didn't ride the Polar Express straight to Noah Fant Town. But maybe I'll hop on board if I see him do it when Courtland Sutton is healthy. So thank you guys all for watching this video. Again, please make sure to check out overlaydfs.com for the greatest DFS daily fantasy sports game on the internet. Make sure to also click that subscribe button if you did end up enjoying. I love each and every single one of you motherfuckers, and I cannot wait to see you guys in tomorrow morning's video. I love you all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, I'll see you motherfuckers tomorrow. Goodbye.